I had a YPO dinner a few weeks ago, and I was sitting with a buddy, and he was talking about, he's got 350 employees, and he said the hardest thing for him in the first 10 years of his business was to, number one, and the reason why I'm mentioning this is you said something similar to this. He said, we always think we're the best at everything, right?
Yes.
You were the only one that ran a P&L for 10 years of your business, but we always think like we're awesome at everything. And he said the most challenging thing for him for the first 10 years was slowly over time realizing that there's literally one person who's going to be better than him at every specific different
100%.
thing. And he said it was just one of these things where it was very hard for me to give stuff up. And then finally somebody would do it and they were actually better than me. And I was shocked. And then I'm like, shit, I should have had this. Why didn't I do this a long time ago? What was your experience like that, delegating to people? And how did you learn that?
Just by trial and error and realizing. I remember there was this inflection point, I think, right before 2018 when I told you we needed to do something different. I was literally in meetings, and I'm talking in meetings, 10 and 12 hours a day, back to back to back to back, giving everybody direction. And there were some positives because it was fairly cohesive, right? But I just was like, this is absolutely not sustainable. Not even from a tired standpoint.
Yeah.
But people weren't able to grow, progress, fill their own space, their own seat. And it was just a wake up moment. It's like, you gotta do something different.
Well, how did you wake up? Did somebody wake you up or did you wake yourself up?
It was, I would say it was more me, but it was also, I think other folks definitely said things. It was less my internal team that said things because they were, I don't know why, maybe they just didn't know at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely, so I had a couple people on the outside of the company that I would ask things to and talk through things and good suggestions of you really need to delegate and spread this weight out. And it took me a while to actually listen, to be honest with you, because exactly what you described. But I finally was like, I need to do it. I couldn't see, as I looked, I think the biggest thing was, as I looked 5 years in the future, I was like, this is not sustainable, and we're not going to continue to be able to grow as I want to grow and build what I want to build if I don't do this. And that instigated school, that instigated sending others to school, that instigated, and at the first, this did happen where you give responsibility and you see a little bit of a dip.
Yeah.
And the temptation is to go, oh,
See,
I can't do that.
Yeah.
It didn't work. I got to bring it back in.
Yeah.
But you have to let people develop. You have to let people evolve. And then to your point, it ended up where they did those things way better than I did. And that's what's awesome to see. But you got to go the distance. You got to take that leap and you got to just let it unfold, especially if you trust them. If you trust them, you just got to let it go the distance.
In closing here today, I'm always curious as to if you look at the guys who now are where you were, what sort of advice would you give to these young CEOs that are growing their businesses?
You really have to, it's cliche at the end of the day, but you really have to take some time to focus on being the visionary and thinking 5 years in the future. Build out, what does your business smell like, look like, taste like, feel like? What does the organizational structure look like? Revenue marks, metrics, profitability, 5 years into the future.
Yep.
And then you base your decisions today on how you're going to get there. Because a lot of times in the moment, you got stuff flying at you all the time, and it's really easy to chase revenue or to cut costs that you shouldn't cut or to spend money that you shouldn't spend. You really have to make sure it aligns with what your 5-year vision is. And when you get a year in, bump it out another year. You constantly have to be thinking about the next 5 years. Constantly. And then the second thing I would say is discipline. Discipline. Hold to whatever that is. Once you've decided what's going to get you there, don't vary. Don't deviate. You stick to the plan until there's something big enough and then you bring it in and maybe you reassess. But at the same time, you stick to it on a day-to-day basis without question. I think that's the biggest difficulty or weakness of entrepreneurs.
Had you ever struggled with that?
That was not my struggle, but I watched people around me all the time struggle with that. and I saw the fruits of it. And
Yeah.
so it just reaffirmed my crazy thinking. I was like, okay, I'm going to keep doing that.